Hi, welcome to another video of me painting a landscape in Ibis Paint X. Now, I have paint kind of a landscape, mountain, and there's path in this painting. So overall, it looks more like landscape paint, and I do get refer to some landscape photos to paint this image, and there are always a few things I need to remember or plan out how I paint every single time, and I always think about what image or what I want to paint, whether it's clouds or mountain or trees, and then I have to decide what brushes I can use to paint this image or this painting. And then after that, I also might think about like what kind of paint techniques I would use. Okay, the most common one is doing in the shadows and highlights, but also I need to remember every time I paint, I need to know the 3D form for the image that I'm going to paint. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to share with you of how I paint every single image in my videos. And I think basically that's much it. Yeah, that's how I normally paint on my every video, though sometimes I do find it difficult to paint to kind of to paint quite fast, because I kind of paint many different pictures every single day, and each of that painting require different paint techniques or different brushes to use, and I also need to practice more about what kind of textures used, and what kind of textures best for different kind of pictures. For example, trees and leaves and mountains. No, I try. I'm using everything everything from in Ibis Paint. So yeah, just using more brushes, see if they are good enough to paint certain textures or certain 3D forms of certain pictures. Yep. And I'm going to show you exactly how I paint this image. Let's go over to the app, Ibis app, and here I'm going to click edit. I'm going to make this layer panel a bit more big, and this is the reference photo I taken. So I replaced some tree over here, and what I kind of copied from this reference is how are the grass patches in terms of the shadows and lights. You can see here are dark, and then towards the near the path it turns to have a kind of bright grass color. And for the clouds, kind of copied a bit the shape of the clouds, and as for the sky, I look at how it turns from a very saturated dark blue to a very light blue towards the end. Yeah, and that's all. I then for the near the midground, I add in some mountains, and for the path I can put in like some rough textures, but I do not want, because I already use it on the trees and the mountains, and I just leave it plain. Just that difference is there's some darker parts and some light parts of the path. And now I am going to turn off every single layer, and let's start with the base color, which is the foreground. This kind of set the horizon line as well as the base color for the foreground, as I am using most like a blue to a blue color towards a purple color for this painting, landscape paint. And I'm going to share with you how I chose colors for this one. So if I want more focus or focal point on a subject, I would go for a very saturated color, like say over here. And then for the shadows, I'm slowly bring down this forward below, or I can, let's say, reduce this by 10, or let's say I want to reduce it by 10, I click here, and now it's 59, so the shadows is about 59. Then I click here, okay, and then slowly I try to reduce the shadows, or I manually bring down the shadows and get the color palette. And some variation I use is I move the saturation a bit lower, and then I move below to get the shadows. And I like to do a diagonal for the lights. I do this, okay, to get the lights. So for example, if I start from here, I'm going to choose my light and highlight color moving in a diagonal direction. In this painting, I'm choosing blue towards the purple, so it's about this color range. And the brushes we are going to use is Benefit, and I have a custom cloud brush which I downloaded from the Ibis Paint website. And I'm also using the Coarse pencil for textures and crust. The crust textures are this one, and also and tree trunk, I'm using a tree trunk brush. This one for reference, and then after that I redraw it myself, because I want to get more control over the shadows and highlights. And also using the crush, and I'm using the this Luzula crust. And let's start with how I paint this picture. So that's for the foreground, I only have one layer, base color of blue, and then the next base should should be the grass. So the grass, first I draw in where should the lighter color of the grass should look like, and where the mid-tones of the grass, and where is the most highlighted grass should look like. So I block out the color, and then I continue, and I use the grass brush to paint the brush, and then I continuing. The next is the path, where it's just a normal straight line, and I draw in the shadows and the lights. And next is the mountains, the sky. The sky is very simple, just a gradient of I'm using pen fade, and then I kind of blend it together with different variation color of purple. These are mostly the towards the tones and the tints of the purple. And then I'm going to go through the mountain layer, which is we can see it in this mid ground. So let's enable. This is the base color for the mountains, and then I add in the textures, and then I add in some gradient. Same goes for the next one. This is the gradient, and this is the texture. Using the ghost pencil, the gradient I'm using the airbrush. Next, I'm going to enable the cloud layer. What I have is the base color for the cloud, and then I put in some more shadows and mid-tones to the clouds. Next is the tree. For the tree trunk, this is tree trunk 2. So for this one, I kind of paint the shadows, kind of paint just the mid-tones around, and there's some lights above. And then for tongue, let's go for trunk 1. Okay, so this is the base color, and this is the lights. You can see better if I zoom in. So this is the base color, and I add in the shadows and lights. And layer 23, as you see, is this bottom part here. I tried to kind of blend it together with the grass, and then the same goes for the rest of the trunk. The layer is the same. I put the base color, and I draw in the shadows and highlights. And so I have trunk. So this should be, let's rename it to trunk 4. Yeah, so that's for the tree layer. For the trunk tree, the base color and the shadows and highlights, using the ghost pencil brush to give it more texture. And that is all for the painting. As you can see, if I because I have adjusted. Okay, that's all for the painting. If I enable, so this is the kind of the sketch, and the next, this is the kind of the grid line to help me out with the painting. And then for the final effect, I am using adjustment layers, which is the brightness and contrast, and lower opacity to about 80%, and the curve adjustment layer, about opacity 50%. Let's play the video. Let's play the video for this painting, landscape paint path. So I start out with some sketch to kind of decide what I want to paint, and also determining the horizon line, and I know some sort I'm going to draw some kind of path and just more grass and mountains. So I decided to I first tried to want to draw a house, but I want to keep this painting just quite not too complicated way, because I can't really draw. I'm not used to draw a house yet, because so I substituted with a tree, and I start to draw in the base color. First I want to use green, but in the end I just using a blue to a purple color, because I choose something different. And I also try to experimenting with the color saturation and color hue, and I do this all without I do this all with my own color palette. That's what that's why I using blue color, because I try not to copy from the reference photo. I kind of use my own colors. I just desaturate the colors if I do not want it to be as a focal point. So that's how I paint, without try to speed up my painting, without thinking too much about color palette and stuff. And I'm using the adjustments layer to adjust the painting later, because I feel that it's about the shadows and highlights more, to just is good enough to make the painting look good. And yeah, and for color theory, as far as I applying, is if I want a focal point, I use a saturated color, and then the rest would be less saturated. And for the shadows and lights, I've just shown you how I pick the shadows. I've moved the slider down a little bit, and then I paint. And for the lights, it's the same thing. It's just that I kind of move it towards a diagonal direction, because if I move upwards, it does not go towards the white color. So that's why I for the lighting, I go for some kind of a diagonal direction, moving towards the white color. No matter what color I use, no matter what hue I use. And now here I'm painting all of the trees using tree shadows and highlights. And yep, this is the adjustments layer that I've used for the final effect. Thank you for watching till the end of this video. If you like to see me paint more stuff on, paint more things, paint more landscape painting on Ibis Paint X, please like and subscribe to my channel.